Hello YouTube, welcome to Dragon's Dojo Gaming. This is a game I haven't made that many videos for yet, but I am about to bring you my very first Yu-Gi-Oh deck profile. Naturally I do Vanguard videos, but before this I have made one Yu-Gi-Oh video and one one Pokemon video as well. I have made one for Red Eyes versus Earth Beatdown, and I have made one for Dragapult versus an electric deck I remember my friend Thomas using. Actually, no, it was Cinderace V. So, if you haven't checked those videos out yet, I recommend doing so. Also, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And now I'm about to get to my Red Eyes GOAT format deck profile. First up, 3 copies of the main dude of the deck, Red Eyes Black Dragon. Before Synchro Monsters came out, he used to be my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh card. Like throughout the entirety of the original and GX, this guy was my baby, and still is my baby if you don't count anything after Gen 2. But yeah, in older formats he's my guy. But then ever since Gen 3 came out, my favorite deck since then had actually become Synchrons. Ever since Gen 3, Synchrons have always been my favorite deck, and eventually, I will get to making a deck profile for my current Synchron deck. But yeah, back to the Red Eyes deck profile. Next up, I run 1 Red Eyes Black Chick. I may consider bumping him to 2, but I play him at 1 for now, because I feel like if you draw him and don't have Red Eyes Black Dragon in your hand, it can't really do anything without Red Eyes Black Dragon. I also run Mystic Tomato in the deck, which I will eventually get to. So, I also have Mass Dragon in the deck, so he's a good search target. He's an excellent search target for those 2. And now, the most powerful monster in my deck, Red Eyes Darkness Dragon. Red Eyes Black Dragon's easy enough to summon, so he's easy to summon as well. He gains 300 attack for every dragon in your graveyard. He's basically there as a beater. But he's a really good beater. I only play him at 1 because I feel like 2 would be a little risky. Next up, 3 Mass Dragon, the best search fodder of the deck. When he's destroyed in battle, you search your deck for a dragon type monster with up to 1500 attack from your deck and special summon it. You could summon another copy of him, or you could summon Red Eyes Black Chick, or you could summon Twin-Headed Behemoth, which I will get to in a sec. I run Behemoth at 1. I may consider switching him to 2, but at the moment I'm running 1 copy of him in my deck. Next up, 2 Mirage Dragons. Mirage Dragon's really good because he stops your opponent from using traps during your battle phase. Next up, 1 Spear Dragon. It has 0 attack, defense, and switches to defense mode after it attacks, but it's got 1900 attack and can inflict piercing damage. One of the things it's definitely good for is attacking scapegoat tokens if your opponent has those on board. Next up, 2 Mystic Tomato. I run 2 of it because I get 1 tomato after the first one's destroyed, and if the second one gets destroyed, I can summon Red Eyes. I can either summon Red Eyes Black Chick or Sanged from my deck. He's a search fodder for the lower attack dark monsters in this deck. Next up, 1 copy of Sangan. I would run him at I would run a playset of him if he was at 3 in this format, but because he's so good in this format, he is at 1 in this format because of how good he is. Well, he's been at 1 since somewhere in early Gen 1. And so was Witch of the Black Forest until Invasion of Chaos came out. Next up, 2 Night Assailant. One of the nice things about Night Assailant is that if it's discarded from your hand, and if you have another flip effect monster in your grade, you can add it from your deck to your hand. And here's another neat trick in case for those of you that don't know about it. If you end up discarding both Night Assailants from your hand with Graceful Charity, you can literally just add both the Night Assailants you discarded back to your hand, reaching them with each other's effects. That way, you'll have drawn 3 cards for free from discarding 2 Night Assailant. Next up, 2 Magician of Faith. Needs no explanation as to why she's in the deck. 1 Sinister Serpent. One of the best cards in this whole format. In my opinion, it's the 3rd best card in this deck, in this whole format. The one I think is the 2nd best is Pot of Greed, and the one I think is the best card in this format actually is Graceful Charity. Next up, 1 Tribe Infecting Virus. You discard 1 to destroy a whole board of monsters with the same type. Too good to pass up. And finally, for monsters, 2 copies of Flusher Dragon. He's there for being a metamorphosis target. Like, you could summon King Dragoon or Last Warrior from a Last Planet, I think his name is, and other monsters like other level 7 fusions like him. 1 Pot of Greed. What does this card do? I have no idea what it does. 1 Graceful Charity. Here, a card I actually understand the effect of. In my opinion, this is by far the best card in this format. I mean, Pot of Greed's up to a close second to me, but I like Graceful Charity a little more in this format because you draw 3 instead of 2, and graveyard. And even though graveyard manipulation isn't nearly as broken of a thing as it is now, graveyard manipulation in GOAT format is pretty darn trolly. 1 Snatch Steal, because you take an opponent's face-up monster for free. Easy ways to stop it are with cards like MST and Dust Tornado. But overall, Snatch Steal is a really busted card. A card I'm even surprised got unbanned at one point during 2015. Next up, 1 Premature Burial, a walking monster reborn, by the cost of 800 life points. Next up, 3 copies of Scapegoat. Most decks in this format run it. It's just a really good lifesaver card. Next up, 2 Metamorphosis. Man, this card is so abusable. Like, you can use this to summon just about any fusion monster in this format. Also, remember how the extra deck was unlimited back then? Man, one thing that that I always thought was kind of weird about Yu-Gi-Oh! GX was the fact that Jaden would only use Metamorphosis for sending Bubbleman to the grave to summon Neo Bubbleman. Also, how is it that Neo Bubbleman's a fusion monster in the anime, but just an effect monster in real life? I never got why they made him an effect monster in real life. Next up, 1 Stamping Destruction, because it's MST. It's a non-quick play MST for dragon decks. And unlike MST, you can burn your opponent's life points by 500 by destroying a spell or trap, even if they were to chain with with the spell or trap, you'd still be able to destroy the card and inflict damage even if the chained effect were to go off. The effect, basically, the effect would still go off, but if your opponent were to chain to stamping, if you were to use Stamping Destruction and your opponent were to chain with something like Scapegoat or Dust Tornado, the card would still get destroyed, but the effect would still resolve and the opponent would still take 500 damage. It's a nice card. Next up, two of the best back row removal cards in this format, Heavy Storm and Mystical Space Typhoon. They're both in there for obvious reasons. Next up, one Nobleman of Crossout. I technically have a second. No, it's not in my side deck. So yeah, in my Red Eyes deck, I only play one copy of it. It's all I really need for this deck. And finally, one Book of Moon. Another really good card in this format. Finally, for traps. And surprisingly, there's only 5 that I play. This package right here. Mirror Force, Sakuretsu Armor, Torrential Tribute, Dust Tornado, and Call of the Hunted. You don't really need too many traps in this deck, considering it was really made just to be a beatdown deck. And now, for the side deck. Ceasefire. Ceasefire's there because it's good against flip effect decks, and it's a good burn card. Eventually I may consider taking it out for Trap Dust Shoot, just because Trap Dust Shoot is so good. Next up, 2 copies of 7 Tools of the Bandit. Another copy of Dust Tornado, a card I may consider taking out for Trap Dust Shoot. I'm looking to get 2 or 3 copies of Trap Dust Shoot for my side deck. Just because Trap Dust Shoot is just such a good trap in this format. Next up, 2 Regeki Break. 1 Magic Cylinder. A personal tech choice I have in this deck. Because this card can really catch the opponent off guard. Like, your opponent could attack thinking you've got Mirror Force or Sakuretsu Armor or something like that face down. And you could just use this to either take a huge chunk out of your opponent's life points or end the game if that monster's attack points is higher than the opponent's life points. Next up, 1 Enemy Controller. In my opinion, an Enemy Controller is kind of underrated in this format. Really saves it. It's a really trolly card. 1 copy of Book of Moon. 1 Swords of Revealing Light. It's definitely a good card for underrated decks like Pac-Man and low-level beatdown. But I may consider taking it out. I don't know. Next up, 2 Creature Swap. Two Mystic Swordsman level 2. And finally, 1 copy of one of my favorite flip effect monsters, Penguin Soldier. This card has won me so many games. Even in GOAT tournaments, it has won me games. Heck, a long time ago, I talked with Armed Dragons in GOAT format, and I think... Oh, I remember now. This card ended up helping me win against one of my friends that I played against in the final round before Top Cut. And before Top Cut, I ended up going 3-1. And it was my first GOAT GOAT tournament too, actually. Next up, for my extra deck, 3000 Eyes Restrict. Or correction, in this format, the Fusion deck. 1000 Eyes is just too good not to run. Next up, 1 Dark Bolter, 1 Fiend Skill Dragon, and 1 King Dragoon. Eventually, I'm actually looking to get more cards for the extra deck. Like, I'm wanting to get as many level 7s, 5s, and 3s, and 3s, and 4s I can get for this extra deck. Since I can play as many Fusion monsters as I want in the GOAT format Fusion deck. Well, everyone, thank you for checking out my GOAT format Yu-Gi-Oh deck profile. I hope you liked it. I also hope that you guys enjoyed the GOAT match I had a while back. And for those of you that don't know, I run GOAT format Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments every Wednesday at 7:30. If that schedule ends up changing, I will let you guys know on Facebook and Twitter about it. So, hope you have a nice day. Hope you have a nice day, everyone. Peace out.